The student and the empty notebook. Ethan stared at the empty notebook in front of him, its pristine pages glaring back like a challenge. The silence of his room was almost oppressive, broken only by the faint hum of a distant clock. He had bought the notebook with the hope of filling it with ideas, reflections, and dreams, yet now it seemed to mock him with its emptiness. Every attempt to write felt inadequate. Every word he considered seemed too small, too fragile to fill the vast expanse of blank paper. This notebook was more than paper. It was a symbol, a promise, and a mirror of his own uncertainty. Ethan had always been a student of life, curious and restless, yet plagued by self-doubt. He imagined stories, concepts, and reflections that could inspire, provoke thought, or simply capture fleeting moments of beauty. But when faced with the reality of putting pen to paper, he froze. The blank page was not merely empty. It was an echo of his own fears, the pressure to create something meaningful, to leave a mark that mattered. Hours passed. Ethan's fingers hovered above the paper, hesitating. The notebook seemed to weigh heavily in his lap, as if aware of the expectations it carried. He recalled the voices of teachers, friends, and even his own internal critic, all whispering subtly that writing was not just an act of recording, but a declaration of identity. And therein lay the paradox. How could he express the depth of thought and feeling that swirled inside him when the first words seemed so fragile? Finally, he closed his eyes and took a deep breath. Inspiration, he realized, did not demand perfection. It demanded presence. With a trembling hand, he pressed the pen to the page, leaving a single word, begin. It was small, almost insignificant, yet it carried the weight of courage, the courage to start, to risk inadequacy, to trust that creation begins with a single step. As he continued, the notebook slowly came alive. Sentences flowed like timid streams finding their path, ideas taking shape, reflections emerging from the shadows of thought. Ethan discovered that the empty notebook was not a judge but a partner, waiting patiently for the first act of bravery, for the decision to begin. Each stroke of the pen was a reclaiming of his own voice, a defiance of fear, and a celebration of the power of creation itself. He wrote about the small moments that mattered, a quiet morning sun casting golden light across his desk, the laughter of children in the distance, the fleeting expression of a stranger lost in thought. He wrote about the questions that had haunted him. What does it mean to leave a mark? How can fleeting thoughts transform into something enduring? And in the act of writing, he realized the answers were not fixed. They were discovered in the rhythm of pen on paper, in the unfolding of the story as it lived within him. By evening, the notebook was no longer empty. Pages held fragments, reflections, questions, and beginnings of ideas that had once seemed impossible to capture. Ethan leaned back, breathing deeply, and recognized the truth that the notebook had taught him. Creation is not about perfection, but about courage, persistence, and the willingness to face the emptiness and fill it with your own voice. The next morning, Ethan awoke with a sense of anticipation he had not felt in months. The empty notebook now lay open on his desk, pages already marked with beginnings, reflections, and scattered ideas. Today, he understood, was not about filling it quickly or perfectly. It was about continuing the journey, letting thoughts flow freely, and trusting that creation emerges in the act of persistence rather than in flawless execution. He picked up his pen, and the words came with a rhythm he had long forgotten, tentative at first, then gaining strength, clarity, and confidence. He wrote about the observations he had ignored, the way sunlight moved across the floor, the scent of morning coffee, the small gestures of kindness that often go unnoticed. Each line felt alive, a testament to his newfound awareness that even the simplest moments carry significance when given attention. Ethan discovered that the empty notebook was not merely a vessel for words, it was a mirror of his inner self. The pages reflected his fears, his doubts, and his aspirations, but also his courage to confront them. He realized that writing is an act of honesty, and that authenticity matters more than perfection. The notebook became a companion, patient and non-judgmental, guiding him to uncover truths he had long buried beneath hesitation and self-criticism. Hours passed, the room quiet except for the scratching of pen on paper. Ethan paused occasionally to think, but each pause was not fear, it was contemplation. He began to write short stories, observations about people he passed in the streets, reflections on fleeting moments of beauty and sorrow. With every word, the notebook transformed from a blank challenge into a living testament of thought, attention, and imagination. By mid-afternoon, Ethan had written nearly a dozen pages. He felt a deep sense of accomplishment, not because the notebook was full, but because he had faced the silence and filled it with his own voice. He realized that the journey of writing is less about the finished product and more about the courage to confront emptiness, to translate thought into form, and to trust that what begins small can grow into something meaningful. He paused and reflected on how the empty notebook had mirrored his own life. At first, it seemed intimidating, impossible, and silent. Yet, with patience, persistence, and attention, it had become a space for growth, discovery, and expression. The lesson was clear. Life, like writing, often presents blank pages, but those pages are not threats. They are opportunities, waiting to be shaped by courage, thought, and creativity. Evening fell, soft light spilling through the window, illuminating Ethan and the notebook. He wrote a final line for the day: "The first step is always enough." He closed the pen, leaning back, feeling a quiet satisfaction that went beyond accomplishment. The notebook had taught him a deeper truth. The act of beginning, persisting, and trusting oneself holds more power than any completed page. It was in the journey, not the product, that meaning resides. That night, as he lay in bed, Ethan reflected on the transformation. The empty notebook had once represented fear, doubt, and hesitation. Now it symbolized possibility, courage, and the realization that every blank page is an invitation to create, to explore, and to express the truths hidden within. He understood that life's empty spaces, when approached with courage and attention, could yield richness beyond expectation. And with that, he drifted to sleep, ready to return to the pages, knowing that each word he wrote was a step toward understanding, growth, and the power of his own voice.